Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to bust a myth, and that myth is that noisy knees are a sign of arthritis. Now, what we see clinically, and we see this a lot, I'm sure if you found this video, you're probably thinking the same thing at home, is that if you move around and you bend and squat and go up and down stairs and get up off the ground or get out of a chair, if you hear crunching noises, cracking noises, if your knees pop, if they click, if it feels like they're grinding, any of the sound effects that we associate with the knee, for some reason we automatically think that it's arthritis. Now, what we find clinically is it's not to say that if you have noisy knees that you don't have arthritis, but what we want to promote today is to say that if you have arthritis, it's not the cause of your noisy knees, because we see lots of people that have all these knee sound effects that don't have arthritis. And even if you do have arthritis, you don't need that arthritis to get better or to change for those noisy knees to go away. So I would really like to debunk that myth today. Hopefully I can show you how to prove this or work this out for yourself so you can see this in real time. But I want to make sure that we can sort of debunk that myth that noisy knees are a sign of knee arthritis, because I think it's something that we're very quick to jump to. As soon as anyone develops those noises, our default is that, well, I'm getting a little bit older, it's okay, it makes sense because my knee's a little bit older, so it's going to start to wear away at some point. Excuse me, arthritis is normal, even though maybe this is a video for another day, even though it isn't. It's not something that you should be expecting as you get older, but at least the focus of today's video is I want to sort of highlight why we think that way, but also, as I said, go through some things towards the end of the video to sort of show you how you can figure out what doesn't have to be there, regardless of any arthritis. So I think clinically it's really, really important to discuss this information because we want to set your expectations really high. And one of the things, I think the hallmarks of having knee arthritis or the potential for knee arthritis is it automatically feels like it puts a limitation or a ceiling on our capacity to function normally. We think, well, as I said before, we're getting a bit older, it's considered normal to get knee arthritis, and with that knee arthritis comes an expected decrease in function, decrease in athleticism, increased risk of injury, all these things that we just accept as being normal, but we don't necessarily have to. There's more to it than just what shows up on an x-ray, basically. So I guess to highlight this idea for you guys, we want to make sure that you can distinguish between, yes, maybe an x-ray doesn't look perfect, maybe that knee looks a bit arthritic on the x-ray, but then put that into context in terms of the function of your leg and say, well, look, yes, it doesn't look perfect, but maybe the reason why that doesn't look perfect is because this and this as a part of your mechanics isn't perfect. So if we're addressing those mechanical compromises, again, it's not to suggest that we're going to reverse that arthritis, but what we can do is we can take the onus off that arthritis, and by loading it up better, we can then ask the question, well, does it have to be a problem? Does it have to hurt? Does it have to make the noises that we so commonly associate with it? So how we're going to do this basically is, if you have something that you do at home, if there's a movement that you do that generates those knee noises, I want you to do it. So if that's something like squatting, for a lot of people, it's just as simple as sort of squatting down and up a few times and just listening for what happens to your knee, or knees potentially. And then what we want to get you to do is, we want to get you to find a mobility tool of your choice. So obviously that can be a foam roller if you have one. It can be a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball like we have here. If you've been following along with these videos, you'll know that I love the lacrosse ball. It's such a versatile piece of mobility equipment and rehab equipment. You can use it for so many things. So for the purposes of this video, I'll use a lacrosse ball. But what I want you guys to do is, once you've performed a movement that you know, excuse me, consistently generates your cracking or popping or crunching or grinding, whatever sound that you have, take note of how it feels, take note of the sound effects that you get. Then what we want to get you to do is we want to take the ball and we want to get the ball to press into the area. If you can imagine that your knees divided up into quarters, so there's a line down the middle, a line through the center, and this sort of top corner of basically where your kneecap is. There's a lot of soft tissue here through your ITB, your lateral quads, your hamstrings, not so much the calf, but a lot of areas around here. There's soft tissue here that if your mechanics are less than perfect, this tissue becomes quite, I guess, tight, and it pulls a lot of slack out of that knee, puts tension through the kneecap unnecessarily, and can generate a lot of the sounds that we see. Now, everyone's a little bit different, so it's important, and look, you can hunt around with the ball, but it's important to perhaps see your therapist, see a physical therapist, figure out where your mechanical compromises are, because again, knee issues aren't just a knee problem. The knee is a consequence of everything else. So if your ankle's stiff, if your hips are tight, that can compromise the health and function of your knee. So you need to address those. We've performed a video on this previously, so I'll link that up here if you want to go into that depth, into that in more depth. But we'll just focus on the knee specific stuff because it can be quite profound, the effects you can have. So we want to get your mobility tool of choice. Again, you can use a foam roller, whatever you feel hits the spot. So for me, I'm going to place the ball in that upper corner, basically on the outside of the thigh, not directly on the outside, not directly on top, but sort of on that oblique angle just above the kneecap. And all I'm going to get you to do here, hopefully you can see this, is we're going to put some pressure on that. So this is often quite tender for a lot of people. So if you have any knee dysfunction, this is a great place to start for a lot of people. I'd expect it to be a problem for a lot of people, but again, we want to make sure that you're not missing some of the other things which we'd like you to explore for yourself. But the idea here is that we want to put some pressure onto that ball. And then we want to move the ball up and down and around, looking for something that feels tender, looking for something that feels tight. So for me, this feels a little bit tight, not too tender, which is great. And all we want to do here is we're going to get you to bend and straighten that knee. So I might put my foot over the top here, hopefully not obscuring the ball. But we're going to roll a bit over onto it. I'm going to bend and shear that tissue through the ball or past the ball. So the ball's compressing that tissue, and we're pulling that tissue past the ball by using movements. And again, if this is too tender for you, feel free to use a tennis ball, use a foam roller. How that basically looks with a foam roller is very similar. We basically want to start on the side, roll over a little bit, and then do the same thing again. We're going to pull that foot through, making sure that you're stressing that tissue, elongating that tissue as best as possible. And what we're doing is we're clearing some of that restriction that's been there for a long time. And then once you've spent 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable, just looking around the outside corner of that knee, as high as you feel you need to, as low as you feel is relevant. And all you need to do is just stand up again and then recheck that same movement. And what you should hopefully feel is, you should feel two things. The most important one is you should hopefully feel like you've reduced the sound effects at the knee, but more importantly, you should feel like you've improved the mobility. There's less tension, less pressure in that knee as well. So I guess the point of this entire video is to say that regardless of whether you have arthritis, whether that's shown up on a scan or not, it almost doesn't matter as much as we emphasize in the general public. What's more important is the function of the leg. So if you have if your leg's been functioning poorly or less than perfectly for a long time, the poor mechanics of the knee can start to wear away at that knee, creating that arthritis over time. And the other thing that goes on with that is that as those tissues get tighter and dysfunctional, instead of things moving as they should, you can start to deorientate, you can have things that grind. If tissue gets thicker, it can start to catch and create that gristly, crepitous sensation feeling that we get. But the really interesting thing is once you start to take off those layers of tightness and restriction, then those sound effects start to go away. So just to reiterate what I was saying before, the myth that I want to bust here is that just because your knees might be noisier than they should be, that doesn't mean that it's arthritis, because you can change those knee sounds without your arthritis changing, because we know that we're not quite at the stage yet with stem cells and other protocols where we can reverse that degeneration that happens at the joint. But thankfully, a lot of the times we don't necessarily have to give you back the health and function of your leg. But what we do have to do, and this is the crucial point, is that we have to go after the mechanical compromises that set that knee up to fail. So again, you can find a lot of those with the ball that set up those noises to be there. And again, from the video before, if that ankle's stiff, if those hips are tight, it just changes the way the entire knee moves. Because again, that knee is just a hinge joint caught in between two more mobile joints. So hopefully that was useful. Please try it out at home. Again, do your movement that gives you those sound effects. Spend some time trying to free up any of that restricted, tight, glued down tissue that you may have sort of at the top section of that leg at the bottom of the thigh. And then recheck your movements again and let me know in the comments below what you found. I would expect you to feel some difference. If you've hit the right spots, and again, they might be quite tender to push on, so you might need a few a few goes at trying to free that up. But once you feel like those tissues start to feel a lot nicer with the ball, maybe your knee feels like it's moving better, I'd be staggered if you didn't feel like those sound effects are altering in a positive way. So again, let me know in the comments below so we can see how you're going. And then I guess the important thing is just to understand that there's more to a lot of the general aches and pains, particularly with arthritis, and knee arthritis in particular. It's not just a local problem, it's often a consequence of a broader dysfunction. So, and hopefully those sound effects, as we spoke about off the top, the myth that it is related to knee arthritis, again, it doesn't mean that you don't have knee arthritis as well, it just means that that knee arthritis probably isn't the cause of those sounds. So if they bother you, you can do something about it, which is fantastic. And we go through that with our patients, and we see those results every day. So as a regular person, as anyone should, you deserve to see those changes as well. And you can do that quite simply with an object, which is fantastic. So as always, if you feel like that sort of this video, this information hits the spot, please leave a like below just to let us know that you've seen it and you found it useful. Again, comment, let me know how you went with the stretch, let me know if it made a difference for you. Even just let me know what's going on with your knee, and then we might be able to direct you maybe from afar as to some different areas that you might be able to try to help reduce those sounds and those signs and symptoms. And then as always, if you enjoy this kind of content, if you're looking to learn more about your body, how it works, how it goes wrong, and why a lot of modern medicine potentially misses the mark and misses the point, which is probably why a lot of people aren't feeling like they're getting better. There's a lot of basic things that make a huge impact that are free, and you deserve to know about them. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please consider subscribing just so that you can be notified when these ideas come out. A few of the next videos are going to be busting a few myths, so hopefully there'll be some useful information there for you. So as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.